Good day, everyone. I welcome all the attendees and our speaker, Dr. Rachana, for upcoming webinar, which is going to be held on antiviral herbs rediscovered. So this webinar is being conducted on behalf of Enliven Archive, which is an open access and peer-reviewed publisher with 24 online journals. And we are very happy to get collaborated with Dr. Rachana. And yeah, before getting into the webinar, I'll just give a brief note of Dr. Rachana. Dr. Rachana is an associate professor in Department of Biotechnology, JIP Institute of Information Technology, has been working at JIIT since June 2009. She was working at SPTM NMIMS University Mumbai before joining JIIT Noida. She postgraduated in biotechnology from IIT Roorkee in 1998 and achieved her doctorate from IIT Bombay in 2006. She has qualified NGTLS and GATE, topper in Concord Zone and fourth rank in India in life sciences. She has been the recipient of DBT fellowship during her master's and JRF and research fellowship from MHRD during her PhD. For her PhD, she worked for designing a therapy for adult respiratory distress syndrome, which is also called as ARDS. She has two Indian patents, two textbooks, and have several international and national articles to her credit. Coming to her research highlights, she has been working to establish the mechanism of action of the herbal products in the field of diabetes, asthma, cancer, and neurological disorders. Her group is also trying to work upon medicinal herbs for their preventive and therapeutic potential in case of tobacco smoke induced toxic conditions. The herbs which are majorly worked upon by the group are Salacia oblonga, Adhatoda vasica, Ginkgo biloba, Pyrorhiza curora, Punica granatum, Musa paradisical, Citrus limete rosa, Amalthus, marigold, jasmine, canary, etc. Her goal is to establish the mechanism of action of the old great Indian herbal medicines so that they would be globally accepted. She has got grant from Ayush, NMPB, Government of India on scientific documentation and digitalization of several Indian medicinal plants for anti-diabetic and other activities in 2009. Dr. Rachana is a lifetime member of Indian Pharmaceutical Association Biotechnology Society of India, Medicinal and Aromatical Plant Association of India, and Mumbai Hematology Group. She remained the member of American College of Clinical Pharmacology for more or less 4 years. She was an advisor on the South Asian chapter of ACCP's Student Outreach Committee and IPASF EduFest. Dr. Rachana has been actively writing in scientific magazines such as CII, Ingredients of South Asia International, PharmaBiz, Ingredients South Asia, and Biospectrum. Coming to her awards, first prize for poster presentation at conference at MS Baroda 2000 and first prize for anti-TB campaign from team of SPTM NMIMS Mumbai among the 50 schools of pharmacy across the country on 9 July 2009 by IPASF Congress 2009 at Bangalore. Appreciated and awarded for excellence as a faculty by School of Pharmacy and Technology Management SVKM's NMIMS University Mumbai 2009. IWAA Women Achievers Award by Anchor Media for contribution in the field of education 4th March 2017 and Golden Global Award for Health and Education for outstanding contribution in the field of biotechnology from Balemi at Islamic Cultural Center, New Delhi, India in on 7 September 2019, which is IDMA approved. Around 35 international publications, 2 books, 2 monographs, 2 patents, 8 chapters, 3 PhDs completed, and many invited and keynote talks are added advantages of Dr. Rachana. I cordially welcome Dr. Rachana to this particular webinar, and we are very obliged to have you on this beautiful talk. Please go ahead with your presentation, Dr. Rachana.
Am I visible, Mr. Pawan?
Yes, you're visible, you're audible.
Okay, thank you so much. And it was a, really long introduction of mine was not needed actually, and I think you took my a lot of time for my presentation. So I have to now
But
conclude my.
yeah, we value our speakers because people should understand our speakers are no less to anyone.
Thank you so much. I welcome each and everyone present over here, and thanks to Pawan and Ellen Archive for giving me this opportunity to share my views on this topic. I took this topic as all of you can understand that the way the problem we are facing right now, the pandemic we are facing right now, antiviral herbs, I think, is the way out right now for us till we get a specific vaccine or specific drug for this disease. But let me clarify, I'm not going to focus only for corona or COVID 19. I'll be covering many herbs for various viral diseases. So then I will start my presentation now with the hope and wish that each and everyone will be safe and sound with your loved ones. I would like to start my presentation. Okay, this pictures shows us God Dhanvantari, believed to be god of god Ayurveda in India.
Uh, Sorry, Dr. Rachna, please
Yeah.
share your screen.
Okay, it is not visible.
No,
Just
your screen is not shared.
okay. Yes. Is it visible now?
Yes, clear. You can go ahead now.
Okay. As I explained, I introduced you my topic, how I'm going to talk about this. So, this slide shows the god Dharmantari, the lord of Ayurveda, believed to be the god of Ayurveda in India, and believed to be the avatar of Lord Vishnu. Why I have put traditional system over here is that, as I said, till we get a vaccine or till we get a specific remedy for corona or any other viral disease, we have to depend upon something, whatever we have in hand. But what we have in hand is not less actually. We have been surviving on this planet Earth since ancient time in connection with, in collaboration with all these medicinal plants available all around us. So as such, we have a lot in our hand. The thing is that we have to keep using it. We have to explore them. We have to accept them. That is the only thing which is required. So there are traditional system, which is a systemic development of formulation. We have literature in the books. Also, we have been using traditional system in our kitchens all the time. Our grandnani and grandmothers have been telling us what to use, when to use, how to use. So we do have traditional system. I think not only India, it's like each and every country has its own traditional system. So each and everyone has a lot in our hand. We have to just explore and start using it. So there are certain traditional systems like Tibetan system, which is not very popular. They remain local. But at the same time, we have Chinese Ayurveda, Siddha, Unani, which have been popular around the world. And I think there are many more traditional systems people must have been using around the world. Now the need of the hour is that we need to have a vaccine with us for each and every emerging new viral disease. That's the need of the hour. And we had various other vaccines developed in past. But you see on this slide how many years it took to get vaccine for a particular thing. For measles, it took 1400 years. For polio, it took 33, 48 years. For smallpox, it took 32, 96 years, and so on. But now, right now, we are technologically sound, and we might be able to develop vaccine within a few months, or maybe within a year or 2 years. So that's how we are being now technologically sound, and we have been developing them. Right now, we are trying to develop vaccine for Marburg, chikungunya, dengue, avian influenza, swine flu, Zika, Ebola, and of course, corona. So we means I'm talking about the entire world, the entire scientific community around the world. So we are working on this at the need of the hour for at least for the viral diseases. Now, this is my content of my seminar. I will be talking about the reason of viral spread, mechanism of action of any herb or any drug, different antiviral activities of herb during the life process of virus, active phytoconstituents of the herbs, classification of them, then various other phytocompounds and their antiviral mechanism, a little bit more importance on flavonoids, major phytoconstituents of the plant, some example of antiviral herbs, the immunomodulatory property of the herb, component of immune system, their parameters, cellular domain responses, then little bit about dysregulation of the cytokines, some example of immunomodulatory herbs. Here I have covered two set of herbs, which are, one of them is directly antiviral and another set is just immunomodulators, means how they can modulate our immune system so that we are naturally ready to fight with infections. Then little bit about path of Ayurvedic drugs or any traditional medicine for the namesake, and then the conclusion. So why such a viral spread we are looking at? I think this is not very important to tell at this point of time. We all are experiencing, we all are witnessing everything. But yes, let me start with this. So what we are doing, we are violating our natural food chain. The things which we are not meant to eat by us, we are eating them. Okay, like for in this case of corona, it's been said that it's coming from bat. The bat is not in our natural food chain, and we are using it. So what happens in this case, that the pathogens gets a new host to survive on. They jump upon the human being, and then they actually mutate themselves, and they make themselves compatible with the human host, and they start surviving on us also. So that way we are violating the natural food chain. Globalization, climate change. Climate change is that like every organism is trying to like acclimatize themselves for this climate change. We are changing climate. So in this process, suppose the virus gets mutated or get evolved, and they get new hosts, they get new environment. So that way they are now jumping on us. Then the fourth thing is tourism and travel. So we have been traveling every summer vacation, not only summer vacation, we are looking for conference and seminars also around the world. We traveling from within the country also, we are traveling within the state, within the city and everything. So we are depending upon this too much for our GDP. We have been traveling. So we are taking the virus or the any other pathogen from one place to another one. In case this also, it started from China and then it came to Europe and then came to India, and I think it happened around the world. Then natural calamities. Again, when I was making this presentation, things were not so like collected, but everything came in front of me when I was making to make this presentation. Like natural calamities, India has just faced the cyclone in Bombay, Assam, Orissa. Assam has got landslide. Now we have faced 14 earthquake in Delhi NCR. So all these calamities are like coming up, like everything is together collectively, and we don't know what's going to happen next. It's been predicted that a very big earthquake is going to hit Delhi NCR. Let's see what happens. So what happened in these cases, that the pathogen gets a new environment, and the precaution which we can take in this time period, we are not able to. So that way, again, it spreads. We're talking about viral spread. So how it spreads, we are talking about all those kind of things. One more thing to be mentioned here, right now, natural calamities are not natural calamities. They are actually now man-made calamities, whether it is cyclone or it is earthquake or whatever it is. We are putting so much of pressure on nature that it is now become man-made calamities. Then the last one here is petting the zoo animals. Again, all the animals which we have in zoos are not native animals. We have brought them from somewhere to another place, and they are now exposed to new environment, new pathogens, new hosts, and many more things. So again, we are changing their natural habitat, natural environment, and that's how we then get exposed to the viruses, the bacteria they must have brought with them. So all those things are responsible for such a wide viral spread these days. Then coming to mechanisms of action, a herb or any other antiviral drug can act actually. So here we have 6 major categories. One of them is antiviral, where a drug or a herb can directly actually kill the virus during its life process. Whatever life cycle the virus has at various point of its life process, they can act upon. Second major category is immunostimulator. So we can boost our immune system to keep ourselves safe. Third one is again a major category of inflammation modulator. You must have heard about it that even during the corona, there's a sudden surge of cytokines in the patient's body, and that leads to multiple organ failure. So we can use drugs or herbs in such a way that that may not happen. Then the other three are like symptom based, analgesic, diaphoretic, or lymphocytes, which can modulate the lymph system or fever, or they can perspire. We can perspire to reduce down the fever. So they are the major category. So I will be majorly covering the antiviral and immunostimulator herbs in my presentation. This is a table showing you herbs divided into several categories. It's not that one herb belongs to one category. There can be overlaps in all these categories. So in the first category, we have antiviral herbs. in which we can see the first one is Glycera species, which is the Muletti, and we have Allium sativum. Then we have Endographis paniculata. You'll see all these three drugs, herbs in various categories. The next category we have immune stimulator. Again, here we have Allium sativum, Endographis paniculata, which is Calmig. We have Eupatorium over here. Then we have analgesics, where you have here Elsia rosea, calendula, aconitum. Diaphoretic, we have Eupatorium, ginger officinale, which is adrak over here. Inflammation modulator, again we have Glycyrrhiza over here, Endographis paniculata over here. And lymphosas, we have Asclepias, we have calendula, we have gallium over here. So you see that there are several overlaps. So one herb actually can play different roles over here. So we have different categories, the major activity they have, we have classified over here, and then we have different overlaps as well. So how a antiviral herb or drug can act, that we will now see in short. When the virus enters into the body, there are several steps till it reaches its spread point of view. So the first of all, we can inhibit the viral entry, we can inhibit viral uncoating, reverse transcription if it is a retrovirus having RNA as a genetic material, viral genome integration into the host genome, inhibition of viral genome replication, interference with transcription, protein expression, virus particle assembly, and release from the host cell. So at all these points, we can actually inhibit the virus. Take an example of HIV virus over here. Here you have HIV particle. Okay, it has so many receptor on the surface. In case of corona, we have a spike protein over here. HIV virus binds to CD4 receptor on the T helper cell and CCR5. Here in this case, we have AC2 receptor in case of corona. So if you can stop somehow the interaction between virus and the receptor, we may stop the entry of virus to the host cell. Then comes the uncoating part. So if we can stop the uncoating part, again, we can work upon that. Then the RNA comes out, and then it will be reverse transcribed by the reverse transcriptase enzyme. So we can inhibit this enzyme. After the double-stranded DNA is formed, it will get integrated into the host genome. So here in this case, we can stop integration. Okay, the drug can stop integration. Then after integration, it will go for transcription or translation. After that, after translation, it may be then will be worked upon by proteases, which will make such protein which will be assembled together to make the virus, and the virus will be released. So again, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 steps where we can stop the viral spread. Now, in the modern science, the modern drug science, what we generally do is we look for one molecule which can stop one of these processes. In case of natural remedies, generally we have multiple targets. We can target multiple things at one go. This may be possible when you have a formulation made up of several herbs having several phytoconstituents, or right now even in the modern drug also, now scientists or doctors are trying to give combinatory medicine as well. So they want to target many targets together while working on a particular disorder or disease. So it's an advantage with the natural remedies, natural herbs, that they can target many things together, that too without having much harm to the host, the patient. So these are the major phytoconstituents of a herb which are known to have major pharmacological activities. They are alkaloids, flavonoids, anthocyanins, anthraquinones, cardiac glycosides, coumarins, cyanosic glycosides, glucosinolates, phenols, saponins, protannins, and sometimes proteins. So these are the major categories, and we have several specific chemicals under these categories. So this is a rough classification of phytochemicals. We have carotenoids, alkaloids, phytosterol, polyphenols, terpenoids, organosulfur compounds, nitrogen containing compounds. All these are the subdivision of phytochemicals. We can further divide them into several subcategories. So as we have seen this classification in the earlier slide, here phenolics is a major category where we have phenolic acid, flavonoids, stilbenes, coumarins, tannins. Again, in this category, flavonoids is a major category which has flavonols, flavonols, anthocyanidins, and isoflavonoids. So it's a major category having a lot amount of pharmacological activity. We'll just point it out some very important molecule which are very common molecule which we knowing about them. Here we have caffeic acid. Here we have quercetin, camphorol. Here we have, this is represented in rose, radish, and onion. Here you have luteolin. Here you have catechin, apicatechin present in green tea. Then we have delphinidin, we have here janicitidin. So all these very important and very common molecule are there, which are majorly falling upon in the category of phenolics and further flavonoids. Now, after having a literature review done, I could see that the flavonoids, I could see in each and every point where the virus can be inhibited. It is inhibition of viral entry, uncoating, reverse transcription, viral genome integration, viral genome replication, transcription, mRNA expression, all that is under the category of flavonoids, and then many more categories are also there. For protein expression, I found proteins are also important, and then many more. You see that all these phytoconstituents are able to do this particular function, which is antiviral in nature. Again, a little importance about the flavonoids. Take an example of HIV. It's been studied and reported that flavonoids can act upon reverse transcriptase, integrase, viral protease, casein kinase 2, and then you have threonine protein kinase. So these are different enzymes of the virus on which the phytoconstituents can work upon. Now let's see some example of the antiviral herbs. So here, first of all, I have this example of Phyllanthus amaris. It's called as Bhuya amalki in India. And you will see this, plant growing in our roadside and in the gardens these days during the rainy season. And we think it is a weed and we throw it out. The quercetin is again a very major component of this plant, and even rutin is also very important component of this plant. It is known to suppress hepatitis B virus for a period of 48 hours if given 1 mg per ml. And it suppresses HHB mRNA transcription, polymerase activity, and replication. Next, we have this plant, Trichosanthus kyriolovi, which is purple in India, very good vegetable for northeast people. Here we have a protein called trichobitacin, which is a ribosomal inactivating protein. It is known to reduce expression of HIV-1 P24 antigen. It actually has multiple functions. It can be an aggravation, anti-tumor, anti-HIV, anti-HSV, and many more. Single peptide chain it is, and it permeates through the membrane and interacts with the artificial phospholipid membrane as well. It hijacks exosomes, and it can recognize HIV-1 with the help of lipid rafts. Next, we have eucalyptus. Everybody knows about eucalyptus, Nilgiri in India. So we have several species. Among from them, Eucalyptus bicostata is known to be very important, especially for Coxsackie virus B3. The major constituent of eucalyptus is 1,8-cineol, which is eucalyptol, and camphor. Other components are also important, but these are the major one. Coxsackie virus B3 causes severe illness with neonatal infection, myocarditis, and meningite encephalitis. Even respiratory distress, hepatomegaly, hemorrhagic manifestation, and congestive heart failure. Next, we have Lonicera japonica, which is called Madhumati. The active constituent of this is chlorogenic acid. It is also known for viral respiratory tract infection for H1N1, H3N3, influenza virus, parainfluenza virus, respiratory syncytial virus, and also hepatitis B virus. It is known to inhibit neuraminidase activity, which is required to cleave sialic acid group from glycoproteins, it actually blocks the release of newly formed virus particle from the infected cells. Then you have Panax ginseng. This has been now very popular among the young generation and elder adults. So this is being accepted by the people like a nutraceutical. They take 1 or 2 capsules every day. This is also known to have role in respiratory infection, viral infection, rhinovirus, influenza virus, HIV, herpes virus also, Coxsackie virus also. The major component from here is ginsenosides. It is also reported that it can also work against SARS-CoV. It inhibits the viral replication, and it also inhibits the pro-inflammatory cytokines. It modulates iron gamma production and in the bronchoalveolar lavage cells in the mice. Then we have very important herb here, Withania somnifera, ashwagandha. And the major component for this herb is withanol. And it is known to be against herpes virus, influenza virus, and even for COVID-19. People are now right now doing docking studies a lot, and they're trying to see whether the phytoconstituents of a particular herb can bind to different receptor for the host or the virus in general. It's been shown by Patanjali Vidyapeeth Acharya Balakrishna that it can bind to the interface of ACE2 RBD domain of spike protein. That means it may inhibit the entry of virus to the host cell. But it's a dry study right now. Nothing has been proven about them. But anyway, Withania somnifera is known to be a very good herb for against the viruses. Then we have Lycoris radiata. This is having lycorine alkaloid as a major constituent, known to be against HIV-1, SARS-CoV, poliovirus, Coxsackie virus, measles virus, HSV-1, human enterovirus 71. This virus is a positive stranded RNA virus, and it causes hand and foot mouth disease in children under 6 years. Also, certain neurological complications. Prevalent in Asia, and right now, so far, we don't have vaccine or drug available for this disease, and we can depend upon this particular herb. It causes inhibition of elongation of viral polyprotein during translation. Then we have Glycera glabra. I talked about this. That's a very important herb, which is called as Muleti or Yasti Madhu. I think the Indian can definitely recall this particular little small woody thing to be kept in mouth during the sore throat or cold or cough kind of condition. It's been told by our mother and grandmother that you keep sucking it and maybe your throat will be fine. It has major flavonoids as bacillin, glabridin and all. It's again by docking studies been shown that it may work against corona, SARS-CoV, and it has been predicted that it may inhibit the entry, RNA synthesis, replication and maturation. It is having very good affinity for the viral spike protein and host ACE2 receptor and furin proteins as well. You see here that there is a set of phytoconstituent over here which is against this interaction. We have another set of phytoconstituents here which is against ACE2 receptor of the host cell. We have another set of phytoconstituents of this herb which are shown to be having good affinity against SARS-CoV and pro-protein, which is having a vital role in viral gene expression and replication and are crucial for maturation cleavage events of viral precursor polyprotein. So as you can see, this is a very common herb we have been using since our childhood, and it may have a major role to play fighting against corona. Now let's see how the herbs can immunomodulate our system so that we are naturally prepared to fight against any infection. So a little brief about our immune system. So as we are aware, we have two classes of this immune response, innate and adaptive. Innate is majorly taken care of by the phagocytes, especially NK cell in this case, viral infection, and complement system and cytokines. Adaptive majorly consists of B cell, CD4 cell, helper cell, and CD8 cytotoxic T cells. So once the pathogen enters in the body, it will interact with phagocytes. In case of virus, majorly NK cells, and dendritic cells are the very good antigen presenting cells. So any of these cells can engulf the virus. They will be then presenting their antigen of the virus to the CD4 cells. Now CD4 cells have a role to play to help B cell as well as CD8 cells. It can regulate the entire immune system, even the innate immune cells as well. So it will ask Th1 response, which will be increasing the amount of IF and gamma cytokine and IL-2. For Th2 response, it will start secreting IL-4, IL-5, IL-13. Means CD4 cell will induce Th2 cells to release IL-4 and IL-5, which is known to increase the antibody production by the B cells. T17 cells can secrete IL-17, IL-17F, IL-122, which is majorly known for autoimmune diseases and mucosal activity. So mucosal activity is important over here also. Then you have I T regulatory cells and T regulatory cells. They again start producing IL-2 in a large amount. Actually, these cells are there to maintain the immune response. They will cause immune tolerance as well as they will prevent adverse immune activation, means hyperactivation. So they are regulatory cells. They will regulate. The immune system should not be reacting in a hyper way. It should be controlled. Okay, so it's a brief about the component we have in the immune system. Now, when we do in vitro in vivo study, basically we study these parameters. We study the production of inducible nitric oxide synthase, expression and nitric oxide production in vivo, and then the activation and expression of cyclooxygenase, lipooxygenase. In case of viral diseases, we can study about interferon gamma, IL-6 and IL-8. And on the other hand, we can also study inhibitory cytokine production, which are IL-10 and TGF beta. So these are very basic parameters. We do have other parameters as well, but basically we focus more upon these parameters in the beginning. For cellular immune response, we study about peripheral blood molecular cellular proliferation, anti-cell proliferation, lymphocyte, phagocytes, and also the antibody production. What do I mean by this is that when we give some drug or herb to the cells or maybe to in vivo condition, mice, rabbit, or human being, we study these parameters. We study how good they are responding in terms of these responses, cytokine production, cell proliferation, and everything. So this is the way we study, and we have been studying about the herb as well. A little short about again. So here you have dendritic cells, which is exposed to the virus, presenting virus to the CD4 and CD8 cells. CD4 cell is educating B cell to produce antibody. CD8 cell is killing the virus by cytolytic activity. Okay, and all other phagocytes can also engulf the virus or their respective pathogen and can work as APC. So in short, how these all components interact with each other when you have a pathogen inside the body. Now, what we have to do is we have to make all of these things healthy. Macrophage, neutrophil, natural cells, dendritic cells, T cell, B cell, all should be healthy to respond when the pathogen comes in. And how we can do it? We can have certain drugs or herbs which can do so. I was talking about the dysregulation of the cytokine, that in case of corona, even in case of ARDS, which the topic of my PhD, what happens is it's a sudden jerk of cytokines released, and that leads to the organ failure. Now, what these pathogens do is they are smart enough. They try to modulate and reverse our immune system in such a way that they can thrive better, they can survive better, they can multiply better. We want the other side. We want it to be reversed. Now, what a pathogen can do is, you can see here that Th1 cells, the pathogen will try to reduce the amount of TNF alpha, IFN gamma, IL-1 beta, IL-12 and all. For Th2 response, they will try to actually upregulate. Now, maybe the young learner will say why we are worried about it. Why IL-4, IL-5 are not good. What happens that in case of viral diseases, the antibodies are not very much effective to fight against virus. And suppose once the responses goes from Th1 response to Th2 response, means if the CD8 cells response goes to B cell response, antibody response, then Th1 response gets suppressed. In case of virus, we want more and more CD8 cells to be activated, not the antibodies, because they are not so effective. So the virus will try that these cytokines go up and Th1 response will go down. So that's how they work. Okay. Similarly, they will also try to increase the amount of inhibitory cytokine, IL-10, TGF beta. This is inhibitory cytokine, and if they are increased in amount, then the whole entire immune system will be suppressed up to whatever extent, and the virus will be able to survive, thrive better in our body. What we want reverse of it. Okay. So here we have another set of herbs which are known to be immunomodulatory. So sometimes they will increase or decrease certain cytokine which we are not maybe not be happy about, but it is about regulation, it is about modulation, it is about balancing them. It is not always ki IL TGF beta should be going low or high or something like that. It's about the combination. what cytokine is present in what amount in a particular proportion, that is more important over here. So let's see a very good and very interesting example we are facing every day. We are using every day is curcuma longa, which is haldi. Okay. See in this picture, we Indians have been using haldi for each and every occasion. We are using them in kitchen. We are using them as haldi doodh. We are using them in the weddings. Okay. What I understand from this kind of tradition culture we have is that our ancestors have made it sure that we keep these beneficial things around us so that we can get benefit from them whenever as and when required. So we use them for each and every occasion, for each and every tradition, each and every cultural things. So we are utilizing them. If we talk about curcuma longa, what it is against, what not disease, what not disorder, starting from diabetes up to cancer. Its major component curcumin is there, which is known to act upon each and every disorder and disease. And in this case also, it is against antivirus, it is against viruses, hepatitis, influenza, Zika, chikungunya, HIV, HSV2, papillomavirus, and many more. It is also known to regulate our dendritic cells, macrophages, both B and T lymphocytes. It also regulates cytokines and various other transcription factors and their downstream signaling pathways. I have another very interesting slide on the next slide, that how now the modern people have accepted haldi in their daily life, which people were like reluctant to take. Now you see this slide, we have so many new brands coming up with haldi mixtures with milk. Here you have a golden toast. Here you have the golden ice cream. We have haldi doodh. We have golden milk frappuccino, as we have the cappuccino. Now Mother Dairy has come up with the major milk brand in India, in Delhi NCR at least. They have come up with haldi milk so that in corona time people can have it and make their immune system boosted. We have a cold milkshake with haldi. We have even the new brands coming up with the latte, a golden latte or turmeric latte in their cafes. So young generation is now enjoying all these drinks in a new way. So it's a good thing. People are enjoying old thing in a new way. That's how I kept the title as that, herbs rediscovered. Then we have another set of example, Allium sativum and Allium cepa. This is lasun and pyaz. Inseparable component of India or China at least. And they have major component as quercetin and allicin. There are many more components also. It is known to be against cytomegalovirus and many more actually. Actually, I could not cover so much is studied on this, and I'm surprised why pharmaceutical companies are not taking up these molecules or herbs by them, and why they are not working upon them. You see that it can also stimulate macrophages, lymphocytes, nasociliar cells, dendritic cells, eosinophils. It can modulate cytokine secretion. It can increase immunoglobulin production. It's been seen it can increase even the antibody production. So there are a lot of potential for all these herbs which we are daily using in our lives. Then comes the adrak, gingiber officinale. It is known to reduce IL-2 production, IL-10 production. Aqueous ginger extract can increase the production of IL-1 beta, IL-6, TNF alpha cytokines. The ginger diet is, if you taken for 12 weeks, it is known to increase hematocrit. The entire blood parameter will be then become very great. Hemoglobin, erythrocytes, neutrophils percentage, everything can go up if somebody takes a particular dose of ginger rhizome for 12 weeks. The ginger essential oil is known to improve even the antibody production as well as the cell-mediated immune response. Then comes Piper longum, which is called as Peepli in India. This has immunomodulatory potential and as well as antiviral properties. The major component here is piperine. Now, what is great about piperine is that it is known to enhance the bioavailability of many other phytoconstituents if they are mixed together. So, suppose we mix Piper longum with curcuma, with haldi, it will increase the bioavailability of curcumin. For the young learners, bioavailability is the amount of any drug molecule available at the site of action or at least in the blood. So whatever we eat, that will not reach to the blood. A certain amount will be reaching there. It depends upon the molecule which you are eating, whether it will reach the site or not and how much amount it will be reaching over there. So that's how the piperine is making things bioavailable. The other phytoconstituents can make bioavailable, and anyway it is anti-inflammatory. activity. Then next we have Piper nigrum, Kali Mirch, again inseparable part of India and China's Chinese kitchen. This is known to be against vesicular stomatis indiana virus and human para-influenza virus. And again, you see that piperine is the major alkaloid present over here, and it has all these activities, pharmacological activities, including antiviral and immunomodulator. So all these activities are there with Piper nigrum Kali Mirch. Now, explaining all these major herbs, I have another interesting slide on a particular formulation we have on from Ayurveda, which is called as Trikatu powder. Now, what is Trikatu? Tri means three, and Katu means bitter. So there are three bitter components here in Trikatu powder: Piper nigrum, Piper longum, and you have dried rhizome of Gingiber officinae. So these three things are mixed together, and they are known to play a very good immunomodulatory role, antiviral role, and as they can act as expectorant. So they can modulate our immune system. They can like soothe up our symptoms during the cold and cough, and maybe in case of corona as well. So this is being prescribed by Vaidya, the Ayurvedic doctors these days in India during the corona season. Then we have a very pious, very auspicious herb here, Ocimum sanctum, the tulsi. Here we have major components as eugenol and many more. It is known to be against H9N2 infection and many more viruses. And again, you see the entire list goes on and goes on. What all pharmacological activity it doesn't have, antiviral, immunomodulatory, and what not activity it has. So that's what I said. The tradition which we are following in India and many more countries, we try to keep these things together in near us, beside us. We have been using tulsi for all worship. It is like believe that you should, if you have a plant of tulsi in your house, then all other disorder and disease will be away from you. Why they will be away from you? Because you will be consuming it, you will be conserving it. So that's how the traditional system has a great potential to keep ourselves healthy in the either it is an old disease or a new emerging diseases. They keep us healthy. Then we have cinnamon here, dalchini. This herb is again getting very popular in young generation and the cafes and everything. And now it's been like given to the people in a new way, in a fashionable way, which is also good. The people are accepting it. So in the leaf of cinnamon, we have eugenol, and in the bark we have cinnamaldehyde as a major component. Otherwise, they have in the both the component are there in both the things, but the major component are there. Known to be against H793 influenza virus, H1N1 virus, and syncytial virus. Now, how it acts? Cinnamaldehyde inhibits pro-inflammatory IL-1 beta, IL-6 production, suppresses INOS and COX-2 enzyme. So this is actually kind of anti-inflammatory. So it will not allow the immune system to go hyper. What is needed is once the infection is there and our immune system is fighting against it. So what happens that we have to regulate it. It should not be out of control. Okay, so if you take these kind of herbs or medicine, it will control it. It will not let it hyper or lower down. It will modulate it. It will balance it. So cinnamaldehyde plays a role to modulate our immune system. So what all we have in case of cinnamon these days, the dishes I can just quote you here. We have apple cinnamon smoothie available. We add cinnamon to the cakes and the pastry, in the ice creams these days. So cinnamon is now becoming kind of fashion in the new generation, and people have been using them in a new way. After discussing all these herbs, again we have a formulation which is very well set by the government of India. By Ayush department, it's been kind of given a policy to each and every person in India should be having this to protect himself from the coronavirus. So this is a quath or kadha or tea made up of a few herbs, which is having tulsi, dalchini, kali mirch, and saunt. They are means the ocimum sanctum, cinnamon, and then the nigrum, paper nigrum, and then the Gingiber officinae. So these dry things have been mixed together along with the dried raisins, boiled together in water, and one can have that twice a day with having some jaggery or gur or natural sugar along with it for the taste. Even the golden milk has been prescribed by Ayush Department, Government of India, so that we can boost our immune system. And even the Chawanprash is also a very famous formulation from Ayurveda, which people should be taking during these days. Actually, these things can be taken the entire life. There's no harm taking them, and one can be healthy, keeping infection as well as disorders, various disease, daily disorders like lifestyle disorder also. If you keep on taking them in daily life as well. Okay. We have discussed so many herbs over here, and I think 70-80% of them are known to us. The thing is that why people don't accept them, because people think it's not been established. But going through all the literature, I could see that there are so many herbs which have been explored, researched upon, and established as well. But again, the Western world and the modern people are not accepting them. We have to make a some effort to establish these kind of things. They are there. We have experience, we have observation, we have established research in this area. So we have to accept them, start accepting them now. We have to change our mindset actually to accept them. In a way, if you go by tradition, a classical way, how these herbs can be accepted. So here you have Ayurvedic therapies or any other natural remedies kind of thing over here. So if you want to accept them, you have to go through the entire process. There are few ways, several ways by which it can be taken further. So the therapeutics can be taken as whole formulation, sterilize it, and then we can go for reverse pharmacology. Or Ayurvedic therapeutics can go for experimental documentation. We'll go to clinical phase trial too, and then accept it as natural drug. Or Ayurvedic therapeutics can be explored for its medicinal plan, what all is there in the therapeutics in the formulation. Screen their extracts, isolate the active principle as I have been discussing about allicin, quercetin, and everything, and it can be a modern drug. Or the extracts which are screened can go as standard extract, can go for clinical trial, and can be taken as herbal remedy. Or it can go for ethnomedicine, standardized, and can be used for fields. So you see, there are several ways to accept Ayurvedic therapeutics in the modern world, but yes, it takes time. Okay, whatever is reported in our literature, old literature, I think we all can be opening our heart and mind and start accepting them. It has a very good potential for old and new emerging diseases. With that, I would like to conclude over here that herbal drugs have a lot of potential to rediscover their potential for old and newly emerging diseases. For the time being, we can have faith on traditionally known medicine from various countries, which are generally known to boost our immune system and known to treat viral diseases. We already have many established herbs and formulations for various diseases. Parallelly, we can investigate and establish more natural product based drugs for the treatment of specific diseases. So, with this, I would like to end my presentation, and I invite questions, suggestions, and ideas.
Thank you, Dr. Rachna. That was a very insightful presentation. I would like to add a note to this particular presentation. See, always there is a saying that old is gold. In the same way, we will have to actually know what is the importance of our tradition, especially when it comes to Indian tradition. That is not a format, but it is a way of living, but it is a huge knowledge that we have actually missed a lot in time being. And I'm glad that these days people are getting aware of such type of knowledge, and people are showing interest for the traditional medicine and whatever it is. See, forget about the traditional plants or medicinal plants, whatever it might be. Even if it is a plant, it obviously does some good thing to us, because a plant itself is a selfless organ. It actually gives many things to us. And adding to your particular presentation, after going through all the different species that you have mentioned, we are very happy, and I'm especially very happy because I'm a huge plant lover, and I'm very happy to know that most of them are being harvested by me in my home, and I'm really very happy for that. And yeah, it's an honor to have some important talk like this with you. And there is a question from the audience. I'll just put over. Meanwhile, you can stop sharing your screen so that your screen will be enlarged and people. Yeah, that's great. So the question is, ma'am, what are problems in developing vaccine against any virus apart from mutating behavior?
um, especially in case of retroviruses, which we have RNA as a genetic material. The problem is that they have a higher rate of mutation. RNA mechanism is actually leaky mechanism. If some virus has DNA, they have perfect mechanism. If any mutation is done during replication or any other process, it gets repaired. In case of RNA, that repair mechanism is not so healthy. So when they are mutated, they are mutated. If they are mutated and if it is good for the virus will thrive better. If it is not good for virus, it will be killed. But when it is there's so much of population of virus in your body, and if it is there are so many mutations going on, and one of them is good for them, it is good for them to survive and thrive on you. So for the vaccine, we have seen that our body system can make a T cell against them. They can make antibody against them. The moment our body recognizes that okay, we can catch it, we can kill it, it changes its shape, its protein structure, and everything. So the antibody which we made, the T cell we got activated during this infection, are of no use now. Vaccine does the same thing. They also like stimulate our system to make these components available for killing the virus or catching the virus. When the virus is changed, the mechanism is failed. That's how we don't even have a vaccine for influenza, normal cold and cough. We can't have a vaccine so far. We have one or two which we have to take once in a year, because every year the virus gets mutated. So when we don't have vaccine for normal, common and cold and cough, then why? How will we have such a good vaccine for corona? That's a major problem with RNA virus, retroviruses, whether it's the HIV also. HIV is also a RNA virus.
Excellent. That is a main thing that people have to know, Dr. Rachana. People are still, I can see many people are telling that we'll get vaccine, we'll get cured, we'll get something done. See, according to me, I support Dr. Rachana, very much, because viruses doesn't have any medicine or vaccine. Viruses only can be prevented. Only the thing what we'll have to do is we'll have to improvise our immune system for sure, so that our body will be able to fight against those viral infections or whatever it is. What is the example quoted by you is very perfect. Even the normal cold have no perfect vaccine or no perfect medicine till date. How can we expect something like for corona? People, and not only people, but many academicians and many health professionals are not actually teaching this particular basic thing to all. People are still in a mindset that yeah, vaccine is going to be arrived in the September month, and from then everything will be
No, but
fine.
there's one point to be added here. People are looking for those protein which are generally not mutated in the viruses. So there are certain conserve reason which will never get mutated. So scientists keep on looking for those stable domain which may not be mutated. If we can get those domain identified, then we can definitely have vaccine. But that's a difficult task. We don't have
Yes.
anything for influenza virus so far.
Yes, yes, exactly. My point is also same, and yeah, people have to understand that they'll have to definitely boost their immune system for sure, rather than waiting for something to arrive. Because when there is a time that something arrives, we might have that particular lifetime or not. I'm not sure about it. And I also want to add one more point that if at all some corona patients, I mean some person is detected as a positive and he is now discharged or cured, it doesn't mean that he is not he's done with everything and everything is gone from his body. It's only that his symptoms have been suppressed and he's been discharged. Am I correct? Still, his immune system is got affected, and he'll be infected. And according to me or a few other studies what I have gone through, the lifetime of that particular individual who is actually positive is been reduced. Is that correct?
I don't think so. If the person was infected and recovered, that means his or her system has overcome the infection. But the thing is that if a new coronavirus comes up, means if a new mutation has come up, the person is again prone to get infected, as in case of influenza also. Normal common cold. We get 3 times a year. We get common cold infection. So why we get it? Because we every time it comes in a new way. So same thing can happen with corona patient as well. At that
Okay.
point of time, whatever strain has infected that person has overcome. But if the new virus comes with a new way, then again anybody can be infected like a normal person.
So because of that, we are having relapse in the case of corona.
Yes.
Okay. Fine, that's great. And those are the questions from audience, and there was no more questions, rather appreciations from them,
Thank you
stating
so
that
much.
the session was too much informative and something like that. They have given so many uploads to you.
Oh, thank you
Yeah.
so much.
So yeah, I would like to go ahead with both of thanks. And I personally thank all the members who have been attending the webinar by taking all their time and coming all the way through to attend the webinar. And I personally thank Dr. Rachana for her keen interest on a special topic like antiviral herbs, which is very important, which is neglected rather. People have to understand and people have to focus on topics like antiviral herbs or chakra treatment or something like that. People have to depend on the traditional because we are here only because of the traditions. If you can keenly look into our Indian tradition, for each and every tradition there is a keen and deep meaning for which they have been maintaining. Yes, there are some flaws, very minute flaws because of timelines or whatever it is, but majority of our traditions are very important to our health, and also they are very much interlinked to the science. So thanks a lot, Dr. Rachana, for bringing up
Thank you so much.
all that particular things again onto the limelight. I'm very honored to conduct your webinar because topics like yours is very important to current society. Thanks a lot, and thank you, everyone. If you have any publication queries about your articles or whatever it is, please reach out. And I wish also Dr. Rachana to support our journals.
Thank you so much, Ravan. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.